What's going on, everybody? Thanks so much for joining us today. We are here with the two awesome guests, Will and Art of SouthPaw Sports Cards, and we're going to talk about sports cards. Like, this is something that I've recently got back into. Really excited about this market. I'm blown away from some of the sales over the past couple of years. And I'm like, because I used to collect sports cards as a kid growing up, and
yeah, it's crazy to see how far it's come. Honestly, I can speak for Art. I'm sure and cards used to be, dollar pack at the gas station or a couple dollars at Target, and now you can't get out of a hobby shop for less than $1,000 these days. It seems like.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
in fact, actually, here's a couple examples of some of the recent sales over the past couple of years. And these are the specific sales on Golden auctions. Here's a LeBron James exquisite. Man, this thing sold for $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Here's the rookie cards of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, sold for $1.4 million.
That's the one right
you got,
there.
There's Mahomes. My boy Mahomes. I love Mahomes, man. I'm a Niner fan, and I lost in the Super Bowl, and I still love the guy. Like,
no, he's hard to love him, but you got to.
Yeah, exactly. The Derek Jeter rookie card. Actually, I have one myself.
Yeah.
My childhood. Oh, seriously, was up there. Yeah, there it is. But this one specifically, Gem Mint 10, sold for $600,000.
Yeah.
Messi. It doesn't just translate in the NFL or hockey or basketball, but also soccer. There's massive sales in soccer, especially for like Messi and like Pele and a lot of big players like that.
Yeah, the global sports, man. Like, that's kind of something that you don't think about when you think about sports cards, and just seeing some of these soccer sales, especially around World Cup time and Olympic time and stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy. There's definitely some global money out there, and people love buying cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the GOAT.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan. Debatable, but I still think it's this card. Man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Jordan too, I mean, he's always, be considered one of the best, if not the best athlete ever. But his brand is going to continue to grow in popularity because Air Jordan. I mean, it's still one of the most popular brands in the world.
Absolutely.
Actually, this is a photo. We did a recent break. I don't know what this is going to be worth, but we got a Juan Soto relic card signed. I was stoked about that. Yeah.
Tops like that. That's probably going to be pretty low numbered. That should be a good one. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Why don't we get that lucky?
Yeah.
We never get that lucky.
No, not in breaking. Yeah.
So a little bit of background on us. I was with my boy Will, who's got me back into sports cards. Big shout out to Will with the NFTs, and we met you guys at a sports card show.
Yeah,
and we just great energy. I loved your guys' vibe, and I'm so happy that you came on today to talk about sports cards.
Yeah, man, we're super excited. That was a great show over there in San Jose, and it was cool to meet you.
Super fun.
And now we're man, here we are. I'm glad we made it happen.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So maybe we could start with a little bit of your backgrounds. Like, how long have you guys been collecting and investing in sports cards, and your shop, and how long have you had your store for?
Yeah, so I've been doing sports cards pretty much my whole life. I know Art has too. We actually don't have a shop. We just we do a ton of shows. So this is really in the last about 4 years, and we were doing cards before that. I know Art from our local hobby shop. And we'd open packs, and we always kind of talked about, man, it'd be cool to, kind of do a little bit more than what we're doing. And, COVID was an interesting time for everybody. And for me, especially when the market boomed, I had a lot of cards. Art had a lot of cards, and we just kind of made it happen. We graded, we invested, we've done a lot of good things. And, here we are today, doing shows almost every weekend up and down California, and we're having a blast, man. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's awesome. Do you still have that Fred Warner 101? I'm still thinking about that card. Oh, yeah. I was
look at that. So,
I'll pick it later, but my
goodness.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we wouldn't trade it for the world. This has been a lot of fun, and there's nothing better than doing what you love to do and getting paid for it.
And doing it with your homies, man.
And doing it with my friends, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the fun is.
To our guy Garrett that couldn't make the interview today, he's another piece of our team that he travels with us to shows, and everybody knows Garrett and loves him. So what up, G? We miss you, man.
My guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Garrett.
Yeah.
So, man, getting involved in this market, there's a lot to process. There's a lot to process. You have historical cards with a lot of history, and you have a lot of newer cards, a lot of speculation. So there's a lot of topics I'm sure we're going to talk about today. But I guess we can start off with, like, what factors contribute to the popularity and value of sports cards?
I'll let Art tackle that one. He's got a lot of good insight in the hobby on this right here.
Okay, so yeah, with the pandemic, this is like a real unique situation when it comes to cards. Whatever it was about the pandemic, I'm not sure if it was everybody just sitting at home and being on, their phones, their computers a whole lot more, and they got to view content a lot more, and maybe that generated excitement. But whatever it may be, just like the stock market, it shot through the roof like I've never seen before, and I've been collecting since 1987. So the pandemic really did that. But in general, it's more about the draft classes. So when it comes to these different sports, every once in a while, there is a draft class that just exceeds expectations. There's not just a potential GOAT. There's multiple Hall of Famers. And usually when these draft classes hit, which is actually pretty rare, then you'll see the interest really start taking off. And so, like in the market, you'll see a lot of peaks and valleys. Sometimes, a lot smaller. You'll just see ripples. But whenever you have a really good draft class, that's when you see the wave start to increase. And it usually takes another class or two to kind of sustain it. But let's be realistic. In sports, these big draft classes, like say the 1996 NBA draft class, that was great. But we didn't see another one like that until 2003, the LeBron James draft class. So it's really about the draft classes that really drive the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really good point. And, comparing modern cards to older cards that have a lot of history, the concept of artificial scarcity versus natural scarcity, I find it so fascinating because a lot of these cards, they're just meant to be collected, like the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle rookie card. I mean, there's stories about those cards and boxes of those cards just being tossed in the ocean. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
Which blows, can you imagine that? Unreal. And for everyone out there, if you don't know, there's 3 10-graded cards of Mickey Mantle's Topps 52 rookie card. And apparently those things are going to be worth excess of $30 million today if they ever sold. That's just that blows my mind.
It does, man. Find one of those and then find somebody that's got 30 million to spend on it. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And our good friend of the podcast, the collectibles guru, Eric Whiteback, he makes these tweets out every so often, and I absolutely love them. I love them because he's not saying one way or the other. He's just presenting data. And I find it so interesting. Like, here's a good example. You have the most expensive Baker Mayfield card was $110,000, and the most expensive Joe Montana rookie card to date was $114,000. That's so interesting, right? You have artificial scarcity of a player. And all the hype that went behind him, and people are willing to pay for that speculation.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting you talk about artificial scarcity as compared to natural scarcity. The Baker Mayfield does say it's a 1-1 and it has an NFL shield on there, but I bet money that Baker Mayfield's never touched that NFL shield. And if you go through all the 2018 products, Baker Mayfield's going to have 200 1-on-1 autographs, but to find Montana like that is just, I mean, if I had to take my choice, I would definitely be taking the Joe Montana. You know what I mean? I mean, it's in these guys and watching Baker Mayfield, obviously, average QB at best. And, how do you not just take the Joe Montana for that price?
Yeah, and long term especially, right? I mean, his legend will only grow over time, I would presume. I mean, being a Niner fan, I'm biased.
Yeah,
biased.
And that's what's interesting too. About the hobby is you have a Baker Mayfield autograph that he probably signed 10,000-20,000 cards in his rookie season, and they're selling for thousands of dollars. And you see it with this draft class too. Cards of Kenny Pickett, who really hasn't done anything, selling for 5,000-10,000, and a Joe Montana autograph, a nice one sells for $500, a really nice one. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that too. When you put it all in perspective as to who these guys actually are. It's kind of interesting.
I would like to add too, recency bias. People people know what Mahomes is doing right now. They know what Herbert is doing right now. They're on television every single day, whether it's during the season or in the off season. You can't miss them. A lot of people, if you ask them, who the GOAT is or who one of the GOATs is, they might bring up Joe Montana. But most of the time you have to ask them, like, throughout the history of football, who's the best player? If you just ask who's the best player in football or associated with football, they're going to say Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. So a lot of people get caught up thinking about what's in front of their face as opposed to, in my mind, yesterday or the day before. It's not too far in the past when Jerry Rice and Joe Montana played, yet those players are in the back of people's minds sometimes, and too often not in the front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's a good transition to the next question is, what are some of the key considerations you guys have specifically when you're investing in sports cards?
Sure. So this is not a sensitive subject for us, but
not financial advice. Everyone out there, just so you all know, this is not financial advice.
Because God knows, it's really hard to say, this is financial advice when it comes to sports cards, because so much of it is speculative. So much of it is, if this guy goes and scores 3 touchdowns, or if he goes and breaks his leg one week, your card's either going this way or it's going this way, and it's really interesting. But in regards to your question and what I was saying about art is, I'm a sucker for the draft pick products and stuff like that, and that is not, they're fun to rip, but that is not where the money is at. I would say, you got to stick to your basics. For baseball, it's going to be Bowman. For football and for basketball, it's going to be Optic and Prism, and you really have to be knowledgeable about what you're buying, because as fun as some of these cards are, and the companies make them affordable at $200 a box, and you get 4 or 5 autographs, for these college products. In the long run, you're not going to be making money off of these college products, because once the real stuff comes out with the pro uniforms and all that, all those cards just kind of tank. So you really have to be not just in tune with what you're buying, but in tune. If you are going to buy it, you got to be really in tune at what time you're selling these items, because you got to strike while the iron's hot, basically.
Oh man, it's good for you guys.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the one of the main considerations, though, is determining what are you trying to do with your investment? Are you trying to flip it now or in the near future? Or are you prospecting? Are you attempting just to hold off on certain players that you think have potential, and some year down the line or sometime down the line, 4, 5, 6 years, hopefully make a profit then? So I think those are two things that people really must weigh, at least in regards to investing. Now, collecting is a different story, but from an investment standpoint, I think, what is your short and long-term goal? I think those are two things that people really need to look at. And then the other thing is, as Will mentioned, it comes down to the product too. You don't want to invest in something that historically has proven to give little value, regardless of who the player is. Mm-hmm. And so you really want to stick to the brands, or the product, should I say. Almost everything is one brand or 2 brands these days, soon to change. But you really want to get the products that people see value in. So, your Select, your Prisms, and your Optic. And that's about as high end of the affordability level that you can go.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I love your thought process behind that, Art. And yeah, that for me especially, we're huge advocates of do your own research. You got to do your own research. It's so important to understand what it is you're investing in, whether it's sports cards, collectibles, or even stocks. You just got to know exactly what it is you're investing in. And sometimes it's just good to watch. Just watch and just learn, and you'll grow. The more time you put into a space, the more you'll learn, and the more you'll grow as an investor. So sometimes it's always good to just stand from the sidelines and just watch. But striking while the iron's hot. I was actually my friend Will got me to getting some Brock Purdy cards. Like right when he was like December, January time frame. I missed the window where they were like a couple $100, and we're talking like Oh, it's crazy. I mean, those things
Yeah. I remember watching the game when Purdy came in, and I was sitting there on eBay, and I'm a Niner fan. I do this, and I'll see a guy go down. You immediately Google or eBay his backup, and see what the cards are going for. And I remember seeing it was a certified rookie auto Brock Purdy, numbered to 25. Nice card, but the guy wanted $75 for it. and I was like, is this guy really going to be anything? I went back 45 minutes later. The card was gone. I happened to look, maybe a couple weeks later, and that thing was like $3,000. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
And that's the hobby, and what we talked about, the Baker Mayfield situation. You got Brock Purdy, who's literally the last pick of the draft, probably not going to be anything, and his cards are selling for more than Joe Montana. You can get a Tom Brady autograph for that price. I mean, it's crazy. But I love it. As a Niner fan, man, I got my fingers crossed. I think the Niners are primed up for another good run this year.
I'm hoping so. Will. We lost Art, but he's back.
Can you guys hear me?
There you go.
No, I can't hear y'all.
Yeah. Good?
You missed our.
I'm sorry.
You're good. Yeah, you missed our Brock Purdy speech for Will. Oh, he's back. He's got good. We'll get him back.
Yeah.
We'll get him back. Yeah. But I dove a little bit into the Brock Purdy cards, and got them for like maybe $500 or $600, and it was a 1 of 75 or 1 of 50, I think. Or maybe it was 1 of 25. But right before kickoff, like 45 minutes before kickoff of the playoff game, it was the last game. So that was the NFC. It wasn't the NFC Championship. It was the one right before that. So the divisional. Yeah, the divisional. Yeah. And sure enough, I sold it for much more than I bought it for, fortunately. And then unfortunately, that happened to Brock. But I'm so impressed. Like, he still has a lot of hype around him. People are still paying real high premiums for his card. There's a 1 of 1 right now. 1 of 1. Is it a Prism? I think 1 of 1 Prism on right now on Golden Auctions right now. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
It's and it's a good time to sell Brock Purdy too. Because not to say anything against Brock Purdy, but the odds that he's actually going to keep this going and everything, I wouldn't say that they're super high, but if people want to pay for that and that's what they're going to pay for, that speculation, I think it drives the hobby. Speculation just drives everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry about that, guys. This Fresno State Wi-Fi is not the best.
Yeah.
You're good. So yeah, I guess that you're bringing up some different brands, and I'm curious. Like, are there any brands in particular that stand out to you more than others? I mean, I know some of these packs of cards or box of cards can sell for hundreds of dollars, up to $20,000. I mean, look at like Flawless, for example, which you get one card in a briefcase, and those things sell for like 10, 20 grand. That's crazy, and they sell out. Like, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone.
They do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it just really depends on your price range, though. Like, what can you afford to pay? So Select, I think this is what I was talking about before I lost connection, like Select, Optic, Prism. That's about as high end on the level of affordability for most people. And so if you got the money, that's typically what you want to try to get, simply because that's what people are looking for and that's what holds more value. I would save the opulents, the eminence, the impeccables, the flawlesses. Save that for other people.
Very smart people that can afford that.
Yeah.
So never overextend yourself.
And now, granted, we did do Flawless one time, and we did get a 1 of 1. But before that 1 of 1 came out,
it was ugly.
A lot of buyer's remorse and regret was there, and it took just that one card, and that's nothing. Yeah, I mean, you can't stomach that too many times in one lifetime. So yeah, stay away from that. Stick more to the Optic, the Selects, and things of that nature.
And even then, you bring up a good point, Sean. About overextending yourself in the hobby, and it's so easy to do. And I'd say that I work in a casino as my day job, and that's I watch people gamble all day, and that's essentially what sports cards are now. It's unless you're buying a box of Topps Hobby for $100 or $80, and you just like the cards and like to do it. You're spending $300, $400, $500 on a box. And you're hoping that you hit something, and it's very easy to get overextended. And I'll raise my hand. I've been there. You swipe the credit card a couple times, and and then it's like, oh man, I really got to pay that rent. Just word to the wise of people getting into the hobby is be aware of what you're buying, but also be aware of what you're spending. It is fun, and not everybody gets rich. You see a lot of people that come and go in these hobbies and buy the wrong things, and it's very easy to get carried away in what you're doing, especially in something fun like this, And then you look back after and you're like, man, I spent $3,000 and I got $80 worth of cards. You know, it happens. It feels.
It happens.
It hits home. It hits home. Yeah.
Yeah.
We see that across multiple markets. You know, there's a lot of people that overextend themselves, and it takes the joy out of what you're doing too when you're so financially invested in it. You know, it stings, especially when things drop. And we've seen a dip across collectibles across all markets. It's not just digital collectibles or cards. We've seen it across all markets. So, but that being said, you know, your conviction to your investment is important. So understanding what it is you're investing in will help answer that question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you know what you're buying, it's, you know, yeah, I'm not going to say you can't lose, but it definitely, you know, it makes it a little bit easier to win, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you enjoy it too, enjoy the collectible itself. Right. You know, it's easier to stomach when it dips a little bit.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, Art and I, you know, we do these shows and there are times when, you know, it gets a little difficult, you know, trying to buy stuff, sell stuff, whatever. And then at the end of the day, we sit down, we have a beer after the show, and it's like, man, we're out here buying and selling sports cards for, you know, and we're making money and it's fun. You know, we got to remember that at the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. You know, we love, you know, talking to the kids at the shows, getting kids involved in the hobby. And we got to remember that at the end of the day, that's how we got here. And that's what it's all about.
Yes, love that. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So I guess transitioning into grading, because that's something that I'm so bullish on, and for all collectibles now. You know, it started for sports cards, I believe, and then or comic books or sports cards hovering around there, and then now we're seeing graded video games and VHS tapes. I got some in my background, but I'm like, I'm crazy about all of this. It's exciting, but specifically with sports cards, you know, how does grading affect the sports card market?
Well, grading built, it was interesting. Art and I had an interesting conversation about this the other day. Grading actually built the sports card market around COVID time. You know, before COVID time, I remember when I would buy cards and it was like, you could send them off to get graded, but like, you know, unless you're really sending something worthwhile in, you know, it didn't make to me, it didn't make a ton of sense. But once COVID hit, man, like everything was, PSA this and gem mint this. You know, it became very pivotal in collecting. And I'd still say this just as a word to people in this hobby, you have to grade if you want to stay in this hobby, because nowhere else can you take a $50 card, put a you know, hopefully get a 10 out of it, and you turn it into, you know, $300, $400, $500. And that's just one of those things that you kind of have to do. But as far as grading now, you know, there's so many new companies entering the market. You have SGC and CSC, and you know that from you know, the comics and the magazines and stuff. You know, the emergence of these other companies, it adds another layer of I guess unpredictability, I guess, you know, and you know, a 9.5 in a HGA slab isn't worth nearly what it is in a Beckett slab. And, you know, you bring that back into it, and Beckett used to be the number one company, and now they have fallen. They're number 3, number 4 now, you know, and everything's PSA, you know, everything is, and that's at the end of the day, the king of cards is PSA. And if you want to maximize your investments, I'd say you grade with PSA and you cross your fingers and hope you get some gems.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, aside from just helping determine value, the thing that I do love so much about grading collectibles in general are pop reports, because you have an idea of what's out there, like how many 10s are out there, or how many, you know, graded collectibles in general are out there, and also just to show that they exist, because there's a lot of one-of-ones that are out there that haven't surfaced, you know, especially for sports cards. Like 20 years, they haven't surfaced. They've never seen the light of day. And one-of-ones are a little tricky because it's a one-of-one, so grading it probably isn't as impactful since it's a one-of-one. But still, just showing that somebody actually found it or owns it, and showing up on the pop report is a really big deal.
Yeah, and as a personal collector, I've combed the pop reports because, man, I have a few you know, guys that, you know, not very well heard of or anything, but yeah, I've looked, and yeah, man, does anyone have this card out there? I'd love to get in contact with them if it popped up, but you know, that's not always how it goes. But it is nice to see them out there when they do pop up out there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know earlier we were talking about, there's definitely a risk involved. There is a bit of gambling, especially for modern cards. So
Sure.
maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on some of the like potential risks that people should keep in mind to maybe try to avoid for the if they plan to get involved in the space.
Potential risks. I'd say, just like I touched on earlier, be wary of what you're spending. Make sure it's in your budget and be smart because there's nothing worse. It was interesting at the same show that I saw you at. I had a conversation with a gentleman at his table, and he gave me some really good advice. And he said, at the end of the day, you can't eat cards, and that has stuck
I
with
love
me.
that.
I love that too, and that has stuck with me for the last few months now. That yeah, these cards are great, but paying your bills is much more important. So as far as risks, I would say just minimize impulsive purchases. Always comp things. I couldn't tell you how many times someone says, "Oh well, somebody has one of these up on eBay for $800," and it's like, okay, well, what did the last one sell for? Oh, the last one
Hmm.
sold for $45. So there are sellers on eBay and there are sellers at card shows that will just slap any old price on any old card, and they're just looking for someone to buy it. And I say just do your research. That there's so much great content out there, especially on YouTube, on Instagram. Um, just people like you that are constantly making content that want to educate the masses about sports cards, sports investing. Not to say that it's all good content, not to say that all of it is they're not all prefacing with this is not investment advice, but there's a lot of great content out there for people and collectors, and just do your research. That would be my thing.
I love that, Will. Yeah, and just figure out your budget. Just figure out your budget, and then kind of go from there, and try to figure out maybe even low level of entry with potential big upside. And,
Yes.
and like buying box of cards are exciting and fun, but majority of the time you're not.
No.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
people ask me all the time. Oh, how many boxes do you guys open every month? And it's like, honestly, man, unless you catch me on a weekday with a couple dollars in my pocket, I'm not opening cards. I'm not opening boxes. I transitioned from that, I would say probably about 3 years ago. 2020 was kind of the last year where I really hit the boxes hard, because like I said earlier, you can spend 3-4 grand and you get literally a couple $100 back on your investment, and it's just so unproductive as to what we're trying to do, especially here at SouthPaw, is, not just make money, but just make smart investments. And, you can buy raw singles and grade and make enough money, that, you take a little bit of your profit there, you can open a couple boxes, but I wouldn't say start with boxes and keep going with boxes. I would start with singles, and if you make some money, then you go for your boxes.
You can play a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
You
It,
can give
it,
yourself a couple dollars, to spend, but yeah, man,
yeah,
stick to buying, grading, buying raw, grading, stuff like that.
love that.
It'll really maximize what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't help when you watch those breakers on Instagram.
Yeah,
Breaking
yeah,
gems.
man.
It's
I love
so
the
fun.
breaking
It's so
community, man.
fun. It's so fun, right? I love those
It
guys.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know at what point did it start where everything is, this and that, but it just like Jay-Z and Kanye said, man, it gets the people going, like it gets people
It does. It does.
excited,
Yeah.
and
It got me
there's
going.
it gets people
Yeah.
excited, and shout out to all those breakers out there that just sit there and do it. Our guy Eric over here at the Card Bar in Fresno, he breaks 6 nights a week after working at the shop all day, and it is dedication. And so just shout out to those guys that want to provide a good service for people and want to get good cards in the hands of people. I think without breakers, the hobby wouldn't be what it is today. As much as there are times where I say breakers have ruined the hobby, at the same time they've built it. Not only did COVID help build it, but the breakers that sat there and just taking all those payments and shipping those packages, man, that takes some time.
Yeah, it's
um,
all time.
I couldn't imagine. So shout out to
Yeah.
all those good breakers out there.
Yeah. And so for everyone out there, if you don't know what breakers are, they are basically Instagram accounts that open packs live, and people can get involved in those packs. It's really exciting. So you're watching these packs open up. You can financially get involved in those packs, and then there you go. You potentially can hit some stuff, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. A lot more packs are open that way.
Absolutely. And you can get your favorite team. You can just buy, I just want 49er cards. It really brings back not just the investment part of it, because you can, I want to buy the Bengals for Joe Burrow. Well, it's for the guy that, wants to spend $80 on the 49ers just so he can get some new 49er cards. And I love that, because it just shows that there are still people out there that want to collect. They might not be putting sets together like they were in the early 90s, but they're putting rainbows together of their favorite player, or, they just want, some good cards of their favorite team. And I think that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess I'm really curious, what are you excited about right now in this market? Like, what are you getting involved in, specifically sports cards?
Well, so what am I excited about? Man, I'm excited about all of it. I love cards.
Sure, yeah. That was a general question, yeah.
It's really hard to narrow that down. I would say that I'm really interested to see what Fanatics does when they take over the space. I think that I have a lot of thoughts about that. I think that Topps and Panini, over the years that I've seen, they've gotten a little comfortable where it's like, we can put, for Panini especially, redemptions and points and stuff like that. And as a collector, let me tell you, there is nothing more frustrating than spending your hard-earned money on a box of cards and getting 500 points in your box that aren't worth the paper that they're printed on, and you can go in the Panini store and get a, 4th round draft pick of a 2013 guy autograph. Like, great. Nobody cares,
Right.
I say, what am I most excited about? It's this Fanatics takeover. I think that,
cool.
The Fanatics takeover is going to be huge. I think that I'd really love for them to come in, eliminate redemptions as much as possible, and use up some of that back stock that they've had of all those game worn jerseys and stuff. I have an interesting take on this is, people bring auto patches up to my table all the time and say, it's a 4-color patch, 5-color logo patch, whatever. It's great, but the guy never even touched it. Like it says on the back, memorabilia. Sure, I can go in my closet here and grab my 49er jersey and cut it up and put it in cards, and it's the same thing. I think this Fanatics takeover, bringing collectors closer, like as Upper Deck used to say, bringing collectors closer to the game. Game worn stuff. I would love to see some redemptions for a game worn jersey. I don't want a piece of it. I think
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've seen actual jerseys, game used jerseys signed by athletes, like star athletes, sell for less than 1-of-1 cards that have like a flawless card. But
isn't that interesting?
It's so fascinating to me. Wow, and just that shocks me. But that just shows like how much people value sports cards.
Well, and I think it's interesting, the word value there. It's a cool item. And I'll come back to my Fred Warner here. I love this thing. Don't get me wrong.
Love it.
But
yeah,
I could almost bet you that he never touched this jersey. And as cool as this card is, and it's a 1-of-1 and it's great. If there was a redemption in there for a signed Fred Warner jersey from a playoff game, I would take that over that card in a heartbeat, or even like a meet and greet experience, with the
that's cool. That's awesome.
With the connections of Fanatics to the NFL and now to the NBA and to the MLB, there's no limit to what they can offer us as collectors. And I think for the money that we pay, I'd love for them to see some value in us and kind of give back and say, it would be really cool for these people to, pull a meet and greet for Patrick Mahomes. Like, how amazing would that be? I'll trade a card in a heartbeat to go shake that dude's hand and have a beer with him. That would be really cool.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Another thing I'm interested in. Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, this is something that we're kind of dipping our toe in, but we'll be doing shows in the Central Valley We're looking to bring a nice size show to the Central Valley. So everybody in California, I'll plug this now. Be on the lookout for Fresno. You might think that there's nothing here, but we're right between LA and the Bay, and we have a lot to offer the card space. So, keep an eye out for what we're doing around here.
Well, I'm excited about that, and keep me posted so we can help promote as well. That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. And I'm glad that you brought up Fanatics, because they are making moves, man. They purchased PWC Marketplace. Awesome. There's been some big sales on PWC recently. Big sales. I mean, there was a record sale for a wrestling card by the one of The Rock. There was I believe, that was huge.
It's crazy. I wonder who's paying those prices, though. You gotta ask yourself that. It's interesting. I mean, who's got $100K lying around for The Rock? I mean, maybe it's The Rock. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. There's a lot of athletes that are going after their own cards.
You get people like that buying cards. What Mike Trout has done recently, where it kind of got out on eBay that Mike Trout is buying his own cards. That just pumps the hobby even more. Shout out Mike Trout. I got a few. Hit me up.
Mike Trout.
Right.
I love that. And was it Andrew Jones, the rookie? Was it Andrew Jones? I believe. Andrew Jones.
Drew Jones.
He recently said that as well. Like, there was a 1-of-1 Bowman that recently was pulled, and there's been a bounty on that thing for 125K plus, and he's like, I want that card. So there you go.
They're offering $250 for that card, and then
$250.
It's interesting the deal that they made. They said, whatever the package was with that, if he becomes a Hall of Famer, they'll pay $1 million for that card, which is crazy to me, man. Like, good for him, but like, God, 19 years old playing single A baseball, and somebody's willing to pay $250,000. If I pulled that card, send me that check. No. Best of luck in his career. I hope he becomes a Hall of Famer. But if you want to offer me $250 front, let's do it. And I would love to see that card get into the hands of him too. I think that as someone that I played baseball growing up into high school and college, and if I had my own card, I would be collecting every single one of them. Trust me. So that's what it's all about. I think that these kids, probably grew up collecting cards, and to buy their own cards, that's got to be pretty cool.
Super cool. And I'm glad that you brought up redemptions earlier. And specifically, I heard recently that Mike Trout, there's a redemption card where you can actually, if you got the redemption card, he'll follow you on Twitter. That's cool. That's a good start. I mean, that card, I think somebody sold it for a few $1,000s, but that's a perfect example of what you're saying. It's a great start to creating in real life experiences for people to connect with their fans or athletes, or to connect with the athletes. And that's special. That's super special. And they can do, even just phone calls or Zoom calls. There's so many things that can be done to really add value to these and connect athletes or whoever to the fans.
Sure. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I remember here in Fresno, we had a AAA baseball team for a long time, going down, getting autographs. My thing used to be broken bats after the game, begging for bats, begging for balls. And that's what it's all about, meeting these guys. And I couldn't tell you how many times I sat in the dugout with those guys, and I'll never forget those times. It wasn't, the sitting at the game, it's sitting with those guys and actually just sitting next to an athlete who's like doing it on that level. I think that it's just, it's something that everybody should get to experience at some point in their life. And that brings us back to Fanatics, man. Like, why can't we win box seats to a Yankee game and get to shake the hand of Aaron Judge?
Love that. That. Yeah, that's awesome. That's the kind of things you should be focusing on.
It's like you really want to take this hobby to the next level. Bring the players out of that spotlight and just show that they're normal dudes that just want to have a good time and they appreciate their fans. Like, I think that the more people we can get, where it's like, these guys aren't just on ESPN and multi-million-dollar athletes. Like, they're just cool dudes that want to check out their cards and meet their fans. I think that connecting people is what it's all about.
I love that, Will. That's so awesome. I mean, for me, especially when I was a kid, I was diving into Beckett's and tearing them apart, and I was loving everything. Yeah, that's how I got involved in the collectible space in general, with Beckett's, and just speculating on players and flipping cards as a kid. I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but it translated to the comic book space, now other collectible spaces as well. And I remember one time Ken Griffey Jr. is my favorite athlete of all time. You got it.
Sure.
Oh, no, it's over there. There's a rookie card. My pops, my pops, yeah. And my dad, I told my dad, we have to go to that game. We have to go to that game. We'll go in a couple hours early. I want to try to get his autograph. So we stopped at a local comic shop, and we bought a ball, went to the game, and I'm running towards the dugout, and I see him run out. And I'm just screaming at the top of my lungs, Griffey, and he runs back, and by then people are flooding. And he ended up signing my ball, man. And that was one of the best experiences of my life. Oh, yeah. I still have it to this day. It's one of my prized possessions.
I was going to say, you still got it somewhere. Yeah. No, that's
100% in the other room. Yeah.
And
it's so special.
Really, so many kids these days, and especially with, we're going a little off tangent here, but just the price of life and the price of going to these games, and, a hot dog's $10 and a beer's $20 and your tickets are $200 each, to go and just to get to watch the game for the prices that you pay doesn't quite seem worth it. But if you get to meet these guys and, shake some hands and make a real memory like that, that's really what it's all about.
I love that. I love it so much. Well, I guess to kind of wrap things up here, maybe you can give one piece of advice that stuck with you to our audience.
Yeah.
And collecting and investing in collectibles.
Yeah. Well, I touched on it earlier. You can't eat cards. We'll remember that. But just one pay your bills and then buy cards afterwards. But one piece of advice, just enjoy it. Oh, that's my guy, Bulldog Sports Cards right there.
Oh,
that's my guy,
Appreciate
Eric.
you.
Shout out Eric, man.
That's awesome. Shout out Eric. That's awesome. What's his socials on Instagram? Or
you can check him out on Instagram at the Card Bar, great shop here in Fresno, and then at Bulldog Sports Cards. He does a lot of great affordable breaks, and his stream is fun. He's pulled some insane stuff. So go check him out. But as far as just advice, enjoy it. If you at the end of the day, not everybody's in it to make money. Not everybody will make money. But just enjoy it. Buy what you like. Don't get too deep, and just remember that it's just all about creating memories. It's not about making money. And when we go to these shows and we pass out cards to kids, and we're oh, this is my dad and my my grandpa walking with me here. It's like, it's really special. I work the card shows with my dad, and I wouldn't trade those times for the world. So just enjoy it. Remember that it's not all about the money, and pass it along. If you have a card that you can't sell or whatever, and it's a weird Panthers card, and you got a Panthers fan friend, give that card to that guy. Spread love and pay it forward.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and Art as well. And everyone, make sure to follow them at SouthPaw Sports Cards on Instagram. They have such great content. I was actually nerding out over your collection today.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, make sure you follow. Absolutely. And you have such a healthy mindset, man, and just in the collectible space in general. And I just really appreciate that a lot. And I look forward to having you on again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You have a good one.
You too. And thanks so much for joining, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right.